Hello everyone! Welcome to the first official workshop project video here on the Budget Workshop show. My name is Tom. Going to be your host. Going to do the rest of these hopefully for a long time. And well, today for our very first project, I am going to do something that I promised a friend I would do if I ever got this little show up and running. We are going to do, believe it or not, we're going to do a Pokemon. Not just any Pokemon, it's kind of cheating a little. We're not doing one of the more intricate little animal guys. We're just going to do something kind of simple to start out with. Something that I kind of know what to do. I've been working with swords and daggers and things like that for a long time, since the 90s, when I was back in college, showing how old I am. And I was intrigued by one of the newer Pokemon that came out, and it is basically a sword. The Pokemon is Honedge, or Honedge, or however it's pronounced. I'm not sure on that one. But we're going to get started on this. It's going to be a full-scale one. Now, according to the little lore, Honedge is about 2'7", if I remember right. And so what I did was I started out with an image printout about yay big or so, and we actually scaled it up to the point where it is full scale. And we did that using just a simple, I don't know if you can, how well you can see this, but it's just a simple couple sheets of construction paper. Scaled this up using a grid, and I have my little drawing of Honedge on it, a little bit of dust. And we got the blade, and we got the little cross guard here, and there's the pommel. This is where the little eye is going to be. I didn't draw that in because that's going to have to be done separately. One thing I did have to do is the actual handle. When that was scaled up, the handle would have been about 3 inches wide, which is really roughly the width of my hand, and that's way too big for a sword handle. So what I did was I scaled it down. It's about the only alteration I did, other than a few little angles here and there. Is I scaled the handle down to a more manageable 1.5 inches wide, which is just a little bit wider than this ruler here, so it's a pretty comfortable fit. It'll work. And I'm going to get that done here in a minute. What I did do to transfer this, if you don't have any kind of transfer paper, carbon paper, things like that, do the good old-fashioned method. Take yourself a nice little number 2 pencil, like this, and just, you hold your paper up to light. You kind of do it like this. It's already been done, but you hold it up to a window like this, or any other kind of light source, and you can actually see the lines pretty well through here. And then you just take and simply scribble along the lines of the drawing like that. And once you get the whole thing mapped out, you get that done. Lay that down. We're going to be using, hopefully this will work, we're going to be using a piece of plywood here. It's about, maybe 1/2 inch thick. It's a little thicker than I'd usually work with. I'd usually do a 1/4 inch, but this is a cartoon, so things are a little exaggerated. And you take it, you lay it down on here, on the board, and I'll show you what to do here in just a second. Alright everybody, now you're not going to look at my pretty little face while we're doing this. I'm just going to show you my hands so you can see what's going on. This is a little bit wider than the board. See these little flaps hang off, but that's okay. What I'm actually going to be concentrating on first is just getting the central blade section here done to give us a foundation to put the crossguard and the pommel around, something comfortable to grip. So what we'll do is we'll get this lined up so it's about the right width of the wood. Here, well, the length of the wood, I should say. Get this set up like this. Then we take a little masking tape, simple enough. Little pieces here to secure this. We want to make sure this stays nice and level and doesn't get moved around on you, because it'll screw up your lines if you do that. And there's many ways you can do this. I'm just going to go ahead and put a piece in each of the corners here. This should secure it pretty good. Alright, get that there. More. This is the exciting part of the job. You'll listen to some random guy ramble on while he tapes paper to a piece of wood. Yay. Alright. Get that there. And the lower section's not going to be quite so easy because of these corners. So instead, we're going to tape this widthwise. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm going to get that set up there. Make sure everything's nice and straight and level on here. Attached to the piece of wood. And one more just to be safe. Alright. Get that little piece off the line there. We don't want that covered up because it'll make it a little too thick for it to work right. Alrighty. We got it all lined up like this. And that's ready to go. And alright, we'll get started on this. Now, I'm kind of tall, so the table's a little low, a little uncomfortable, but we'll see what I can do here. Alright. So we'll get started here and use the ruler to make sure these lines stay nice and straight. Because we've got this scribbled underneath here, the graphite and the carbon on the pencil will actually work kind of like your carbon paper. It'll transfer your drawing over, and then we take the ruler, we line up all the little lines here, double this down. Alright, now see, just a little tiny bit. You might want to use what I've got here is a cork-backed ruler. This will actually keep it from slipping. It's nice and straight and sturdy as opposed to the metal ones where you can just sit there and do that real easy. So, anyways, back to what we're doing here. Alright, now that we got that, we need to do something that doesn't necessarily match the crossguard exactly, but is close. And just something that can go inside there and make a little solid foundation so that we have a base all the way back and we're not just attaching the blade to the top of the handle. So, what we'll do here, and since this is going to go in the center of the crossguard in the handle, it doesn't actually need to completely match the crossguard. It can be a slightly different shape, but and we don't have to worry about this part where the crossguard and the blade meet because that'll go on an upper section. We're going to put another layer of handle over this, another layer of the crossguard, make it a little thicker, and that'll have the proper shape. So, what we do here is we get this to line up more or less with the handle, and do another one in here, and get that set up there. This is a slightly curved line, so we don't actually need to use the ruler for this part. And it's going to be a little bit off, but it'll be close enough that we can cut and smooth it down with the saw and the sander. Alright. Now, come to the actual handle part. Well, one thing that is kind of important is the handle doesn't just go straight into the crossguard on this design. We actually have a slight curve off of it like that. And like that. Hopefully you can see this. And then there's also at the bottom where the pommel would normally be, there's no actual pommel on this, it's just a handle that kind of ends. There's a slight indent on the edges, like that. And we also have a slightly rounded edge. This isn't really squared off like this. It's more rounded. I kind of screwed up the original drawing a bit, but we'll be alright. Alright, and then the actual handle part, we want to make sure that's nice and straight. You don't want your handle to be kind of crooked and wavy. It'll make it really uncomfortable to hold on to. That, and if it's like that, you're going to have to sand it all down smooth, and that's a little extra work. You don't want to have to get into that. But we do that here. And then, there we go. Now that should be, if I did this right, this should all be transferred on there. Should have a nice little design that we can work with. Ooh, that is faint, but it's usable. Now, what we're going to do, since this is actually very faint and kind of hard to see, we're going to go ahead and redraw this again on the board. But the carbon from the transfer can leave us enough that we can actually see what's going on. Enough of a guideline that we can work with. Now, of course, if you use a smoother wood, plywood's got kind of a rough, chipped surface, so it's not a real smooth piece. Like there's a little piece just came off. This isn't the best thing to work with. It's just what I had that was the biggest. It's a pretty wide design, so normal wood, a little hard to come by in those wider widths like that in a solid sheet. But if you do like a solid piece of, like eventually, going to start doing stuff. And this is poplar. And you can see this is much smoother. There's no rough edges. This will transfer designs a lot more easily. It's just for now, as you can see, it's not really big enough or wide enough. So we're going to junk this for now. Make noise. And we're going to go ahead and do this on the plywood, like I originally said. Okay. Now that we got that all transferred using the original tracing as a guideline, there's your basic insert. We're going to get this cut out here and get to the fun part, using the power tools. Quick wardrobe change, now we're back to work. First thing you want to do, of course, before using any kind of power tools is use your safety glasses. These little buggers will save your eyes, because no matter what you're cutting, little chips of wood can go flying, the blade can hit something and kick back. These will keep anything from getting into your eyes. So it's a no-brainer, but you definitely want to use these. So go ahead and turn this on. Now, of course, we have our little drawn-out sword. Ignore the truck going by, that's a little noisy. We have our drawn-out little sword pattern here. We're going to send this right through the bandsaw. Now, normally, to keep something straight, you would want to use one of these guides. It would fit right on here and slide through, keep everything nice and level, but due to the size of this little side won't do us any good, so we're going to put that aside for now. I'm going to go ahead and get this started. I'm going to turn this on. It's probably going to be pretty noisy, so I may cut while I'm cutting, so bear with me here. And we'll get started.
Alright, now for this scene here, I don't have any background audio because the saw was really loud, but I figured I'd do this little voiceover. We're just showing little bits and highlights of the cutting out. You didn't need to see the whole thing. That took a long time. But one important thing to note when doing all this, keep your fingers free of those blades. Where I've got my hand right there, that's really close. You want to be extra careful not to touch that, because that will do a lot of damage if it hits you. So just be safe, enjoy the cutting out, and keep an eye on things. Make sure you don't hurt yourself.
Well, here we have our rough cut little sword insert. This is going to be the actual blade that we grind down and put an edge on, and that's going to be final. This is actually going to go inside the cross guard, so you're not going to see this. This is just sort of a guide, give it a little substance put on there. And this is going to be the center section of the handle. We're going to make it a little bit thicker so it's more comfortable to hold on to. And now the important thing is you don't really want to try and follow the lines exactly with your bandsaw. You want to try and give yourself a little bit of room, like maybe a 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch space. That way, if the bandsaw blade moves, because you can see this thing's pretty flexible, if it does move, that way you're not cutting into the actual blade and shrinking down your available area, because you want to try and keep this as wide as you can. And well, once you got that little rough cut spot, that's pretty much all you do on the bandsaw for now. So we're going to move on over to the sander. Now we got a little bit of a different angle here. You're actually looking at the side of my workshop. You can see it's nice and cluttered. We're going to work on the sander now. This is just a typical little belt sander. It did have a disc sander attachment on the side here. I removed that though because it tended to get in the way when I was sanding across the belt. But you know, you can keep that. The disc sander is good for certain things, but I mostly just use this belt. And we're going to get started on that. Now we're going to take all of these little rough lines, like I'm not sure how much of that you can see there, but like right here we got about 1/4 of an inch or so sticking out. You want to try and grind this down. This time you do go straight to the lines. You want to make sure this is nice and straight. Everything follows your lines as closely as possible. And it's important, especially up in the blade area, because like I said before, this is actually going to be the blade that you see once this is finished. So you want all these edges to be as straight as possible. Now, it's important with the sander to actually use a dust mask. If you don't have a dust collector, this one's got an attachment for that, but I don't have the actual bag. If you don't have the dust collector attachment, you do want to use a dust mask. This way you're not inhaling the sawdust while you're working. And they're simple enough to get. I got like a 4-pack of these at the dollar store, so they're not real hard to work with. And you put this on, kind of looks like a little surgical mask. This is really all you need. You do not need a actual gas mask or I'm not really sure what they're called, but you don't need the big full breather. You just need one of these for the sawdust. You do want to use one of those breathers for the spray paint when it comes to that, but for now the dust mask will work. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this running.
And here we have no audio again. I really need to work on this. Maybe get some background music for you guys. Enjoy!
Now here we have our cut and sanded blank. This is essentially going to be what goes in the middle of our sword. And just make sure you get all these lines, make sure everything's all nice and even. That's a little crooked, but I can fix that, off camera. Once all these are sanded down and ready to go, you just set this aside because for now you're not going to work on this until ready to start assembly. Next up, we're actually going to cut out the rest of the handle and the crossguard that goes over top of it. Now, as you can see here, I've gone ahead, I've cut out the additional handle pieces and sanded them down just like I did with this section. You can use the exact same steps, just obviously different patterns. But these are the extra handle pieces. They're going to go on either side of this. And get a little tape on there to get rid of first. But, yep, these will go one on this side, one on the other side underneath. It gives you that nice thickness you need. And I also did the crossguard pieces the same way. The best way to make sure these match up would be when you cut these out, stack your wood like that, tape it together while you're cutting and sanding, and make sure everything stays together, doesn't move. And anyways, what we're going to do here now, first off, if you do have a big enough piece of wood, you can do these as a single piece, like that. So you don't have to put the handle and the crossguard together. I unfortunately had to deal with the scraps that I had left over, so doing it in 2 pieces, but that's no big deal. Okay, now first step to do this, since we're doing this out of wood, it's real easy to do. Just use wood glue. I actually like using this Gorilla Glue. It's really strong. The Elmer stuff works, but it's not as good. But this works really well for this kind of stuff. So what we do is put a nice heaping amount of glue on this thing. Now first you got to pop the thing open. Alright. I'll make sure to put a nice amount of wood glue on here. It's okay if it leaks over because we can clean that up later. Got a little bit of a clog there. There we go. You want to make sure you cover as much of this as you can, but remember it doesn't have to be a big solid blob of glue underneath the thing. You really just need to hold it in real good. Plus when you squeeze it together with the clamps, which I'll show you a little later, that'll actually spread the glue out, make everything stick real good. Alright, now that should be enough just to make sure we'll put a little extra. Alright. Now, once you got that on there, ordinarily you would want to put some type of newspaper or something down, make sure it doesn't get all over your workbench. But honestly, I don't care about this workbench too much, so I'm going to go ahead and just set this up. Flip that over. The important part, you want to make sure it lines up with where your handle goes. That's the really important part. And once that's lined up properly with that, again, it's centered fairly nicely. And there. That looks pretty good. Squeeze that down. You push that down by hand first to get it into position. Then you can use something as simple as these clamps. Just put that down right there. That clamps it down nice and tight. Do the same thing over here. This squeezes it down even further. Not sure if these little guys are big enough. Yep, oh, there we go. Squeeze that in there nice and tight. Like that. There we go. And if you get any of this glue that drips out the sides like this, you should just smooth it down like that. Go ahead and let it dry there. It'll actually smooth your edges down. seal up some of the little gaps that might pop up during the process of cutting it. So go ahead and do that. Smooth your edges down. Of course, you can use like a paper towel, Q-tip, something like that if you don't want to get the glue on your fingers, but it's non-toxic stuff. Just, don't lick it like a lollipop. But that should be good to go. We're going to leave that sitting there for a little bit. You want to give it at least probably an hour or two. Make sure that's on there nice and solid before you go putting the other side on. Well, what I've gone ahead and done, to save you guys a little time, so went ahead and glued all the little pieces together here. So this is pretty much our assembled product. What we're going to end up doing, though, is there may be spots, like in my case, since of the way I built this, you're going to see there's a gap right here. Because this little piece inside doesn't come all the way out. So what you do is you take your little scraps that are left over from cutting everything out, line them up real good like that. Go ahead, just shove them on in there. And what you do is you glue that down, and you just trim and sand that. And then when you're all done, this will all match up. This will be nice and smooth and ready to go. And then we'll go from that step to the finished sanding. And we'll sand down everything, including we'll put an edge on this. We'll smooth all this so it's nice and flush and nothing's sticking out. Take care of this handle so it's not all lopsided and crooked, but everything will line up, be a nice comfortable handle. And once we're done with that step, we'll go on to the painting. So I'll be back with you guys in a bit once I've got all this put together and sanded. And then I'll show you the steps on doing the painting. Now, as you can see, I've done some more work on this. Probably a little more than I told you I would do. We got the edges started to grind those down. Smoothed off all the little spots here and there. Got the handle rounded a bit. Now, the problem with the plywood is it's so thick and so heavy that I really can't turn it into a round handle with the sander I have. So what I did instead was I did sort of a box handle, and we smoothed down the edges here so you got a beveled edge around the sides, so it's a comfortable grip. And it's got this nice little size to it, grip, it's comfortable. Now, you're probably wondering, you see all these little patches like what I got here on the end and the side here, and this is not actually wood on here. It's not sanded down wood. This is actually a wood filler. You can see here. And this stuff, you may or may not have heard of it. It basically works kind of like a spackle or a Bondo on your car, except it's just one piece. It's not a two-part. You just take a little bit of it there with your putty knife. I got a cheap old plastic one here. You can get the metal ones. They work just as good. And it actually fills in. You can see here. You can get that to work. There we go. It actually does a really good job of filling in little gaps and holes and little tiny pinholes in there. Now, it is not actually meant to be a sculpting material, so you don't want to cover your whole thing with it and then try to sand it down. Another problem it has is it's a lot softer than most woods. About the only thing it's probably softer than this stuff is balsa wood. So when sanding it, unless you have a huge amount of it, you don't really want to use a power sander like this one, because there's a chance it'll just break the stuff off or grind it back down to the bare wood and you got to start over. You want to just hand sand it, and I don't mean with like a little orbital sander or something, but actually sandpaper, or in the case like what I've been using is one of these cheap little foam blocks. It's just basically just a big sponge, but it's got sandpaper grit all over the outside of it. And you actually just take the stuff, and just like you probably figured, you just sand it down like that while you're working, and it'll actually make it nice and smooth. As long as you don't use a real rough grit, it'll actually make it real nice and smooth. It'll give you a nice finish when it's painted eventually. And that's another thing, actually. If you want the wood grain of what you're working on to show through, you really don't want to use this stuff because it doesn't have any grain on its own. So unless you're sitting there willing to actually sculpt and carve out the wood grain to make it look like real wood, you're better off just painting over this completely with spray paint, primer, all the fun stuff you would normally do. But one last note on all this is when you sand down these edges, there are many ways you can do this. You can sand this down to a nice sharp edge like a real sword has, but I gotta warn you, especially with plywood, If you sand it down that small, it's very real chance that it can break and chip, and you'll end up with like a real jagged edge all over your sword. Which, you know, if that's the look you're going for, that's cool. But for display purposes, I usually just grind it down just enough so it's got a bevel on here. You can see it's still flat along the side, but it's got a nice little, I'm not sure how much that shows, but it's got a nice little angle on there. And that'll work for our purposes. Once this is painted all up, this will look fairly even. It'll look pretty good. And that's same thing with the point here. You don't have to have a sharp point on it. A nice little slightly rounded point will work just fine. And that way you know you're not likely to jab yourself and hurt yourself with it. But that's pretty much it for the sanding and grinding we're going to do on this thing. The next step actually is I'm going to be showing you how to do the paint. As you see, I've propped this up. Now you may want to, as I've said before, I don't really care if I get paint all over my workbench here. You might, so if you got a nice expensive workbench, you're going to want to lay down a bunch of either newspaper or, you know, sheet of cheap plastic you can throw away. Something to keep the paint off of it. But as far as painting, you don't want to paint with the thing laying flat on the surface, because if you do that, the paint can actually pull up around these edges, and it won't look so good when it's done. You'll have bits and gaps and seams, and sometimes it'll actually stick. So what you do instead is, like I've got here, these are just a couple of empty packaging tape rolls that I've been saving for a good occasion, I guess. You just set your stuff up on here so it's elevated, and then we'll put a nice layer over top of everything. And we're going to start out with a primer. Now again, if you want the wood grain to show through, you don't want to use a primer, okay? It's wood, the paint will stick to it no problem, so you don't have to use it for that. But laying down primer will actually help fill in some of the wood grain here, so that when we're done here, we'll put about probably 2-3 layers of primer on this and a couple layers of paint over top of it. When we're done, it'll look a lot more like actual metal, which is the look I'm trying to go for. The one thing here that I didn't think about until just now, you do want to, since we're going to be putting a little eyeball thing on here, because Honedge has an eye right in the middle of the crossguard here, you want to block off a section of it that doesn't get painted. So this way you've got wood to stick it to. You can glue straight to the paint, but when you do that, sometimes the glue doesn't hold as well. Other times the paint can get smudged depending on what type of glue you use. So I'm just going to do a basic spot here that gets blocked off. And it doesn't have to be the shape that you're going to end up using. It's just got to be something that'll keep a section of this from getting painted. And we'll do that. That'll work just fine. Now, go ahead and get this up here. One thing you want to make sure, if you are doing spray paint inside, unlike me, you want to have your windows open. You want to let plenty of air go through here. Around here, unfortunately, my windows are stuck. I can't really open them. But what I do tend to do is run a small fan to get the air blowing out into the other room so that it can circulate out the front, like that. But yeah, you definitely want air going through here, because spray paint is pretty toxic. It's, it looks pretty, but if you inhale a whole bunch of this, there's going to be problems, and you're not going to like the results. So, in any case, you just go ahead and take this. I've chosen just a flat white primer. You can use black. Now, black will give you a more, depending on the cover paint that you use, the black can give you a slightly older, more aged look to it. But since this is basically based off of a video game, a cartoon thing, I want this to be nice and bright, so we're going to use the white. This will actually make the silver stand out a little bit more, look a little more like actual metal when it's done. There's going to be gold on the handle here, too, when we're done. We'll go ahead and cover this up. And you want to do nice, even coats. Don't just over the thing and be done. You want nice little bits here and there. Go back and forth gently on the thing. You don't want to get too close, because if you hold it like this, it's going to pool up on there and it's going to look bad. You're going to hold yourself a good distance, spray back and forth across the wood. Now again, this may take multiple coats to get this, but this is a good first start. We're going to let that. I'm going to go ahead and do multiple layers here before you see me again, and it'll be right once it's primed up. I'll show you how we go ahead and put the regular paint coat on there. Now that we've got this all painted up and primer, you can see it's got a nice white coat on it. Still got a little wood grain showing. It's okay. It's not going to look too bad. Besides, it's wood. It's very difficult to make it look like actual metal. But once I got that all primered and painted up, what I went ahead and did here was I masked off the handle. I just used a simple, regular, ordinary masking tape. You can get this just about anywhere. And I taped off. We got the edges covered in tape here. Used paper for the bulk of the handle, so I don't have to use as much tape. And use this little wooden insert because it's the right size and shape of the rounded edge of the crossguard. So once this is all masked off, you make sure it's nice and tight. There's no little gaps because you don't want paint leaking through. And once you've got that done, go ahead and you take your paint. And in this case, I'm using a chrome aluminum. This is a nice high gloss silver colored paint. It'll hopefully make this blade look nice and shiny, almost like a new blade. And once we get done with that, we go ahead and we apply this just like we did the primer. Well, you're going to do a couple extra coats of this because you really want the color to show. And you see it's already looking nice and silver there. Don't worry about getting paint on the paper or the tape or any of that. So that's all. Paper and the tape and all that is coming off once you're done here. And there we have our first coat already. That's already looking pretty good. Another coat or two of that and that's going to be pretty much done on that side. So we got this done. There's your nice silver chrome blade. You can still see wood grain through it, but like I said before, it's not a big deal. We're not going to... We're not trying to make this look like real metal. We're just trying to make it look the part, But it's all nice and masked off and ready to go. If you do make any little mistakes with your masking and there's little gaps here and there, you can go and find yourself a nice little container of paint. And we have little ones like these little guys here. You can find these in just about every color of the rainbow and some that aren't in the rainbow. And you just find yourself a nice bright silver, or in the case of the handle, gold paint. A little bit of paintbrush work to touch up the spots that you might have goofed up on, and you'll be ready to go. So next up, we are going to do the handle. And the handle, as I said before, there's a spot where we're going to be gluing a little eyeball kind of thing on there. So when you paint the handle up, first off, of course, you mask the blade because you don't want any of the gold paint to get over onto this. Of course, you can do it the other way around. You do the handle first, then the blade. It's your choice. But once you've got the blade masked off, make sure you take a little wood insert like I did before. Sit that on there. So it doesn't have to be perfect. If you want to block this off so that this section of the handle doesn't get any of the gold paint on it, because it's going to be just as shiny as this silver. And it's going to make it really tough to get the glue to stick to it. Not to mention, if you do get the glue to stick, it's sticking to the paint, not to the wood. So it's not as sturdy as it would be otherwise. But in any case, once you get that done, you get all masked up, you get this part blocked off, then you go ahead and start applying the paint. I'm going to be using this, it's the first time I've used this one. It's a brilliant gold metallic paint. So we're going to see how well this works. Hopefully it'll be just as shiny as the blade, and it'll look really good when we get to it. Now that we've got that all done, as you can see, we went ahead and got the handle painted. So it's got that nice gold finish on there. I really like that, actually. So we got the blade done, we got the handle done. We still got this section masked off here with the bare wood showing so that we can get that little eyeball on there. For now, we're pretty much finished with this. We'll come back to it later to do the finishing touches. We're going to go ahead and set this aside. And the next thing we're going to work on are the eyes. Now this is going to be the only part of it that are not actually made of plywood. They're made of press board, which is basically really, really super compacted paper. It's just as sturdy as wood. And I did this because the plywood is hard to sculpt. So instead I went with these shapes. You can get these at any little hobby shop. They're already cut out, they're already round, perfect shape and size for what I needed. So we're going to start off here. Now these, it's important, you only paint one side of each of these. because the other side has to be glued down, and you want that completely bare so the glue can stick to it. So go ahead and set those up like that. Going to go ahead and paint these down with a flat black, just plain old ordinary black paint. The reason for this is it gives us a bit of a primer for the other paint to stick to, because the rest of the eye is going to be a different color. Plus, when we mask this off for that final paint, the pupil is already going to be painted in black, ready to go, so we don't even have to touch that. This is going to make things a little bit easier. We'll go ahead and we'll coat these up real good. And it's nice, as you can see, it's just a regular old flat black. It's nothing fancy. And, alright, and we'll let that dry. And once that is dry, which actually does not take long at all with a flat black on this surface, it takes about a minute. Actually, it's almost done drying now. And we'll go ahead and put another coat on there just to make sure it's a nice dark black. And alright. That's going to take a little bit longer to dry because it can't soak into the material. Alright, now we have the eyes are all they're all primered up. We've got them masked off so that the pupils will stay black. And the next step is going to be a lot like painting the sword here. We're going to paint the rest of the eye with this blue-green color. And hopefully it'll turn out a little more blue than green when it's done. It's a nice high gloss. I went and got this one. It's a double cover one. So it's essentially every time I put a coat down, it's the same as putting down two. So hopefully it should take a lot less to get these done. And when it's done, it should be nice and glossy. And it's, you know, just like all the other ones. You just do nice, gentle, even paint strokes here. And we get that all covered up. Wow, that works really well. And then we'll get the other one done here. Alright. And of course, we got to make sure we get the sides. And I'll get the other side in a minute. But go ahead and let that sit. So these are all painted up nice and good. You got the nice flat back center, glossy blue eyeball part. So next we're going to attach them to the sword, actually. And the reason I picked these flat ones instead of trying to do a rounded shape is because it is going to be too thick to put one of my clamps over to clamp it down. So it'll be a real piece of cake to just put glue on the underside and just put something heavy on there. A nice thick book, or, you know, you could put a rock on there, but it might scratch things up. But yeah, you know, just something nice and heavy that'll press that down, keep even pressure on it for the glue to, you know, to get distributed and dry out. And I'll be back with you once this is added. We are all finished. This is our Honedge. Now, it is not perfect. You know, it's by no means a movie prop or, you know, a museum quality piece or something. It's just something done for fun. And that is actually the important thing when doing these kind of projects, is unless you are actually doing them because you were hired to, just have fun with them. You know, be careful, of course, around the power tools. Don't be sticking your hand in here while the blade's running. But other than that, just have a ball with these things. You know, and don't be afraid to go back and try an old project again at a later date and see if you can do better. On the other hand, if you're happy with the way it turned out the first time around, there's no need to go back. You just take your fun little toy, hang it up on your wall, underneath your posters. But yeah, in the long run, just have fun. That is the thing I'm trying to do here the most. Here is just have a ball doing this stuff. Maybe next time I won't use plywood to make the thing. But there we are. And thank you for watching my first video here. And I hope to stick around for a whole lot more. We do a lot more projects. If you did one of these yourself, I would love to see how it turned out. Who knows, it might actually be better than mine. Wouldn't be that hard to do. If you can send me send me a link down below the video here, and show me your project, or send me a little video of it. If you have any suggestions on stuff you'd like to see in the future, go ahead and drop those down there below too. I don't have a Twitter account set up for this yet, but I'm going to eventually. But for now, yeah, any suggestions for future projects you have, any comments, you want to tell me how much this looks like crap, I'm fine with that too. And just go ahead and drop those all down below. And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.